Question of the day. What is your favorite deck building game? Now, just so you know, I love all genres of games. However, if you were to tell me, hey, we're going to play a deck builder, I'm going to look at you a little side-eyed because there are multiple types of deck builders, right? I'm all about a game that uses deck building as a mechanic to elevate it versus just, hey, you get these 5 cards, you play them to get more cards, and you discard all the ones you don't use, right? But if you told me like, hey, there's an Indiana Jones deck builder, if you tell me there's a WrestleMania deck builder, I'm there, I'm going to play it. But if you said, hey, for triple the price, you could play a game with Indiana Jones or I don't know, Cody Rhodes, and you have a miniature and you kind of move around and there's dice involved, I'm definitely going to go for that one every time. So deck builders are a weird genre for me because I did, like, one of the first games I bought was the DC deck builder and I played the heck out of it. But when I realized, hey, wait a minute, yeah, there's a theme in some of these games, you're just playing cards to get cards, I kind of became less of a fan of the genre. Because I know there's some people who say Dominion is their favorite game of all time, and that's great. But to me, it's a weird genre. Which is why today we're talking about Damage Control. No, not Io Sky, Dakota Kai, or Bailey. We're talking about Damage Control, a game from Marvel and Wizkids in which you are playing as the people who have to pick up after the giant fight, right? Essentially, you're deck building as, you know, engineers and managers on the ground who are like, hey, there's a giant, like, space dragon laying in the middle of that street. How do we get rid of it, right? So essentially, you are doing that. You're collecting cards out of a rubble pile that add to your deck to make them better. So let's take a look at what this game does, how it plays. We'll come back up and talk final thoughts right now. Alright, so this is Damage Control set up for 2 players, and you know that because you have the smaller frame, as well as there's only 18 cards here. 9 cards get thrown face down, and then 2 cards get thrown face up. Now, I literally mean thrown because you're going to throw them in this rubble pile. You'll start with a beginner set of cards. These are the starter cards of engineers, construction, and a management card. These are your cards that are going to let you do your basic actions. Now, unlike a deck builder where this gives you currency and you buy cards with it, those cards over there, the hero cards, are going to get bought based on having certain symbols on your work desk here. And the way that works is on your turn, you're going to choose cards to play for their actions. So this is either an extract or an uncover action. Now let's go through what these actions do first. Now, I will say these cards have events that occur, which are covered here, right here. So for instance, collapse. Another player takes a card from the rubble deck and drops it face up on the destruction zone. So there are a lot of other events. These are things that will happen on the cards as they turn face up from the uncover. In order to uncover a card, they have to be able to have this symbol completely shown. So that one's not available, that's not available, that one is, that one is. You'd flip those cards over and show what's there. That's the uncover action. Then you have the extract. Select a face-up card from the rubble and place it into your hand. Now you'll take these cards, place them into your hand. Some of them will have points on them that will give you points at the end of the game. Some of them will have a cost on them that you have to pay in this currency to use them. And they all have an ability that they can do, plus, like I said, the points. Now, extract. Now, vault lets you place a card from your hand into your vault. Now, why would you want to do that? You typically only score these points when they're in your vault. So it means they're not in your game anymore, but you score them at the end of the game. So you kind of choose wisely when to vault. One of the notes is you can spend 6 of these coins to vault a card as an action without playing a card. Demo, discard a face-up card from the rubble to get 2 of those coins. So if you have an expensive hand, but you really need to use some cards, you would want to do the demo action. A couple things, when you play cards out here, you're going to be placing these symbols on here to give you symbols to buy those cards. So in order to buy those cards, you need the symbols showing on the cards to buy them. Now, the way that works is, so let's say I've placed uncover here, and I've placed, who else can I buy over there? Out of these cards. Actually, let's do this. So I've got demolish here, and I've got extract here. I could then buy Hercules because his cost is to have those 2 symbols. At the end of my turn, I would discard these cards, and I would gain Hercules. So you're going to play that until someone either runs out of cards in the rubble pile or this, runs out of cards in the hero pile or the rubble pack here is empty. Now there's certain scenarios or modules you can play through. So you've got Mighty Asgard, you've got Vibranium Synthesis, you've got Pym Particles, and other ones out there that are going to allow you to do things differently based on how you're playing. The Pym Particles allow you to shrink and grow your hand, makes sense. The Mystical one lets you trade stuff around, and there's all sorts of little thematic flares, but essentially you're going to be playing these cards to get these cards in these positions to gain those cards so that you can vault the cards and gain points. Now, some of them will also score points. See, Maria Hill says a point for every one of those in your possession at the end of the game. So different ways to score, pretty simple and straightforward, but also kind of tricky when it comes to strategizing. How am I going to get those cards? Do I want to play this card for an action I don't necessarily need just so I have the symbols out there, or what? So that's how you play damage control. So that's damage control. Now, as I do in my reviews, I start with art, then art direction, kind of like a flow chart or a Venn diagram, and then gameplay, because these flow into each other. First of all, kind of like a great meal, you eat with your eyes first and your senses. I like a game to look good. I like this art style in this game. And I know I normally don't say that because I normally like a more stylized Jim Lee or Andy Kubert style comic book art, right? However, there's something charming about this. There's something that reminds me of like the kind of the kids show versions that they used to do for Marvel and DC, where it's like they have the big chin, square chins, and it's kind of more cutesy vibe. Something about this works because every one of the characters looks like that. All the art looks like that. And so I got to say, I actually really like how this game looks. Now, would I want to play a game with that art in a more serious kind of like, hey, you're fighting and you're doing this stuff and the stakes are really high? No, but it works in this aspect. So I really do have to say I like the art. Now, as far as art direction, there is symbology because this is a deck builder game. So you're going to need to know, this symbol lets you do this and this symbol does this. However, what's great about this is there's a really nice player aid. So where if you don't quite remember what everything does, well, you have this player aid that explains all the actions. It explains all of the effects that happen when you turn over cards in the rubble pile. The only thing it doesn't cover is some of the nuance of, well, you can do this in this scenario and you can do this. Now, some things are there, like you can spend 6 coins to vault something as an action instead of just vaulting, with the vault action. But you do need to kind of know what some of the cards do still, even though the reference card is there. Now, as far as gameplay, let's talk about the main aspect of this game, the rubble pile. First and foremost, I like the idea of this rubble pile. It makes sense thematically. It makes sense for what's in there. It actually kind of makes sense for how you use them too. Like if you were to walk up and find like a space dematerializing laser and you're trying to get rid of junk in the street, well, it makes sense that you would use it to get rid of some of the junk in the street, right? So actually, thematically, this game works really well. Now, deck builders always break down because you're drawing card, discarding them, well, why don't I have access to this thing I just found? Or even though when you take a card out of the rubble pile, you get it right away into your hand. So thematically, the game actually really works. Now, where it breaks down for me, it's just a little too simple for me. At the same time, it's complex for the sake of complexity. What I mean by that is you have to play cards sometimes that aren't necessarily beneficial for your turn in order to get that symbol out there so that you can get a hero, because heroes will score, heroes will do powerful things, So to me, it kind of falls a little bit apart there. It is a great concept, but it's just a little too light and it's a little too, I'm doing these things not because I want to, but because I feel like I have to this round. And to me, that always hurts games. So in the end, this is it's not a good intro deck builder because of all the nuance, right? It's not a DC deck builder where you say, hey, these are the symbols you need. That kick, well, that gives you 2 power. You need more power to buy that card. So it doesn't fall into that camp of being able to just sit down and show someone really quickly how to play this game. But it doesn't fall into the heavy deck builders either, or even something like a board game like Dune Imperium that uses deck building. So it's somewhere in between, but I don't think it reaches far enough to the beginner side or far enough to the depth side to really make it stand out. Now, the art, like I said, is great, and the art direction is good, but to me, the gameplay is just a little lacking when you're trying to just kind of enjoy this game. It's not a game I'm going to grab off the shelf to say, hey, I want to scratch that Marvel niche. That's going to be Marvel United or Comic Book Hunters, right? But there is an audience for this. It's a younger audience, I think, or at least parents playing with kids who like Marvel, obviously, but also don't want to get too heavy into gaming. But again, like I say, the thing that hurts this is the advanced concepts that are there that are, you kind of have to strategically think through. And for some kids, that's not the easiest thing to go, okay, wait a minute, I need to play this card, even though it doesn't help me at all right now, so that I can get this symbol to get Scarlet Witch out of that pack, so that when I use her, I'll have her to use. It just kind of falls there. So an okay game. You know, what do they say in England? It's fine, right? It's a fine game. It's nice. It's right? But to me, not one that I'm going to reach for all the time. So that is Damage Control from Wizkids. I'm Bryan Drake here on the Dice Tower. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, etc. Make sure to check out the Dice Tower merch store. There's a lot of great things happening there. Gonna have it at Dice Tower East. You're gonna be able to buy stuff in person, so you'll be able to just walk up, check it out, feel the material and all that stuff, as well as get those. Make sure to check out the Dice Tower Cruise. It is on sale right now to the general public. If you want to go on the greatest Dice Tower, well, the greatest cruise there is, the Dice Tower Cruise is that cruise. It's got all the pluses of a cruise and all the pluses of a Dice Tower event all in one. And you're trapped on a boat. So, not trapped, that's the wrong word. You're on a boat, so you can always constantly find people to game with and run into, and there's always food and there's always stuff to do. So Dice Tower Cruise on sale now. Make sure to check that out, dicetowercruise.com and the Dice Tower merch store. So, enough of that. I'm Bryan Drake. I'll see you soon, actually, on this, well, I don't know if I'm supposed to say that yet, but I'll see you soon. Live. And so will Carla.